I do not break bricks or break boards. I have done it before, but as a karate athlete, when I perform, when I do the kata, it allows me to be myself. We focus on the breathing, we focus on the posture, and the idea is if people can do karate as wellness and use it something like yoga's Pilates, that will be a dream come true and something that I'm working towards right now.
I mean, take classes,
Well, Abby would love to hear your perspective with community building.
Yeah, of course. I mean, building AAGC or Asian American Girl Club has taught me so much about community and just how it can transcend everything, right? It really was after Crazy Rich Asians came out. I remember that morning I went on social media and I had seen this just crazy influx of support internally within our community, but also externally, right, across all different communities. And a light bulb went off in my head. I was just like, wow, if this is possible, if we can lead a blockbuster movie, we have amazing athletes as well, like setting the bar, what else can we do? And I really thought about the Asian women in my life, but also the lack of Asian women in my life. Growing up as an actress, it was very competitive. You're always fighting for that one slot, so you feel like your enemy is the other Asian girl in the room, which it's not. And so I just thought, why is there not a space for Asian women to be able to sit here like today, right, and connect and be able to collaborate and work together to build tables? So I just had this name in my head. Because when I was little, I was in all these clubs, and I would quit all these clubs. So I really kind of wanted to create a new club that would kind of, change that narrative for myself, not knowing if anyone would relate to it at all. But at 10 p.m. one night, I made an Instagram, and I just launched the logo as a post, not having any plan, which is so crazy because I'm like someone who needs like a 5-10 year plan, and I was like, I have no plan, but whatever. I posted it, and then overnight, the next morning, I had messages, DMs, emails from people, all over the US, and then it became all over the world. And now we're, in over 60 countries, people are repping the merch, and, it just really showed me that when you come from a place of authenticity, when you come from your own personal story, because I really weaved a lot of my Japanese American identity into it, which, is pretty specific, right, when it comes to speaking to social media as a whole. But it was really incredible to see grandparents wearing it, dads that are not even Asian that are like, hey, can I wear this shirt? Is it weird? I'm like, no, not at all. It's amazing that people want to represent it in that way. Even Brandon Saito, who's here, has been one of our most amazing supporters. So it's just taught me so much about like putting your hand out, and someone will always be there to take it, to help, to support, and that's how AAGC has been built for 8 years. It's just one by one people supporting and helping no matter what they look like or where they come from.
So this is a question for everyone. We're going to start at the end here. As your platform and influence have grown, how has your sense of responsibility evolved?
Well, I think the more we get, the more I have audience. I guess I should start with becoming a filmmaker, is because things that I've done in the past kind of led me to, as I said, to this place. But as it gets bigger, I think for me, how can I connect each other? Again, I may repeat myself over and over about this. It's very important for me to how can I create a world peace, right? That's kind of a bigger picture, really big. But if I could do that through cinema by showing people who have no idea what the culture is on this side of the world, but if they have a little bit of understanding, for example, I made a movie called Rental Family, and about this white guy who lives in Tokyo and played by Ben Fraser. But if so many people saw across the ocean, and they've never been to Japan, right? But then they saw it, they felt what the culture was about. They felt the loneliness through Brendan's character. So there's a mutual, weird connections that the people felt in that. But then the message for that movie was, for me, was look within yourself, because the answer is there, right? It's as hard as it is, because when we get lost, we just totally don't know. We want to rely on other people's opinions and all of it. But if you really look down, it's always there. So Rental Family really was a message about that. And for me, by projecting that message, and whether you take it or not, if that people get it, and if they're kind of stuck in their own world, and come out of it and see the world in a little bit of a positive light, then my job have achieved. I've accomplished my job for that reason. But then also in the bigger picture, I feel responsible because I spent that movie ended up taking 4 years to make it, from the moment we would start writing a script to be out in the theater. And then obviously we reach millions of people through cinema. It's, maybe not as strong as social media, but it's there. So how, for me, if I can build the understanding of individual countries, and now looking at not just Japan, but if we continue to make a movie that the country, each other started having a war right now, right? Because individual has nothing to do with what's happening, what government is doing, We have no power to that. But then if the individual can understand the person next to you, the island next to you, or country next to you, or across the border, and if there's a mutual love and respect that we could build, I think that's really a start from this bigger thing. We have to start from somewhere. So I think as I, get opportunity to work on a bigger project, and then that's something that I always, incorporate into the story, even though if it's a Christmas movie or whatever that is, I try to have that so that people can understand each other and support each other. That's always my goal. Yes, definitely a responsibility, I feel. But I enjoyed it.
I think when I think about growing and getting bigger and feeling more responsibility, I think it feels like a lot of pressure. So I always try to just zero back and think about, individually the people that, the next generation that we're trying to empower and inspire. I mean, one of my favorite things is just seeing like these 6-year-old girls that are wearing AGC and they're choosing to wear that on their first day of school. And I'm like, what? I'm so nervous for you. And they're like, why would you be nervous? What are you talking about? So, I think like, when I think about impact, I think about just, people individually and how those collectively can make such an impact together. If I can tell a quick story that may make sense or may not make sense, but when, so I played one of the toys in Toy Story 4, and that whole thing came about because I was acting for a long time, and I remember it was really slow, and I was gonna give up. I was like, this is not working out. Nothing's happening for me. And I said, you know what? I just want to make something, myself, just for fun. And so on a Saturday, I woke up one day and I had a friend who had a camera, and I got my dog, and we've been out in my neighborhood, and I was like, we're just gonna make this fun YouTube video, just for fun, right? Before I quit acting. And we made this video, and I released it on YouTube, and it got like 55 views, maybe. And I was like, oh man, this video sucks. Like, no one's watched it, no one cares. I definitely should quit acting. And I remember it was like a few months later, I got this random call out of nowhere that was like, hey Allie, they want you to be in Toy Story 4. And I was like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? I've never auditioned for this movie. I've never been offered anything without auditioning. And they were like, yeah, but the head of Pixar casting went on YouTube and they found this random video you made. And they were like, oh, that's the character. That's Giggle McDimples. And I was like, are you kidding me? One of the 55 views they got was the head of Pixar casting. We got it, so maybe I won't quit. But all that to say, like, when, just thinking about, it's 55 people, right? Like, there could be 55 people in this room. Each one of you is so important and has your own journey, right? So I try not to think about like thousands and millions of views and impact on a grand scope like that. I just try to think brick by brick, person by person, events like this where you guys are meeting and connecting. Like, each one of these connections can honestly change your life, right? Because community is everything. So yeah.
You never know. You just
really don't.
never know. That's why you don't want to, you always want to be nice.
And also, speaking of like connectors are so important. Again, shouting out Brandon, but like, the reason we met was because Brandon's like, hey, let's go to a Dodgers game, right? And it's like those kind of human connections, especially if you have a shared background, is really what it's all about.
For me, I always like to think about where I started. I started karate at a YMCA in Hawaii, and I was this girl that had glasses. I was always in a corner, and because I had to wear glasses, I had to wear one of those goggles that had prescriptions. So I had to wear that, and those sponge headgears, and the hand pads, shin pads, and definitely not the most athletic person in the room. And that's one thing I did love about karate and martial arts, because you don't necessarily have to be the most athletic in the room, but I was definitely the hardest working girl in the dojo. And never did I think that I would be representing the country, or let alone be in the Olympics, because for us, we were never an Olympic sport. It was at one time that Tokyo Olympic decided to put karate in, that there was an opportunity for me to even say, okay, like I want to try. So I always like to look at my roots and where I started. And, as an athlete, when you continue to compete and like train at a young age, for me, like results, again, was everything. I wasn't just training to train and compete, but when I competed, I wanted to win. I wanted to be the best, and I wanted to challenge myself to see how far I could go. And at some point, it hit me and it clicked that maybe it's not about just results. Maybe it's about how I impact others along the way and in my journey. And when that moment hit, I realized that it's more important to really think about how I show up. How I show up meaning how I speak up for younger athletes, or I don't know, I always think that you lead by example. So I always like to, make sure that everybody in the room is seen and heard, and that mentality definitely changed over time. So when it comes to responsibility, again, it sounds like it's such a big word, but I learned that important thing is to be yourself. And as long as you're yourself in the room and you have good intentions and you're there for other people, then you're already impacting people in the most positive way. So like I said, going back to my roots, remembering where I come from, how I started, and that's a mindset that I try to carry through.
I feel like everyone's already said such fantastic things. So the key words were about responsibility and platform. So I started skating when I was 4, and the first time I represented Team USA was when I was 12 years old. So that felt like a large responsibility at that time, and this was also around the time of the emergence of social media. So beyond who you were meeting in person or who's in the venue, you had the ability to connect with others and have the awareness that you were connecting with them. I think that can sometimes be complicated, but I was always grateful for the opportunity, because specifically when I think about being Japanese American or Asian American, you are a human bridge. You have the ability to connect two places through your identity. And so that was something that I found to be very powerful. And so while it can be intimidating sometimes to think about the amount of visibility that you have, I really do think that it's grounding to focus, like they were all saying, about the power of individual interactions, because that's really fortifying and what strengthens. Because when we think about the way that we all relate to each other, it's really those small ripple effects where you don't know when that will gather and have the power to turn into a wave, but it truly does happen.
I think for you, I have chills. Like, the next question is about legacy. But what is it that you want to leave behind for the next generation, for the work that you do in your industry? We can start with whoever wants to go first. Okay, let me think about you.
I can start. I'm a mom now. My daughter's gonna be 2 in a few weeks, and so oh wow, she will love that. She's probably at home watching Moana right now, which I'm like, yes, representation. It's better than watching Frozen 800 times. But yeah, I think my idea of legacy has just become even more emboldened and strengthened. I mean, like I said before, I've always been so passionate about my grandparents' story, you know, where they came from, losing everything, and just being JA in particular is like my heart, blood, and passion in life. But yeah, I think becoming a mom now, it's just, it strengthens everything I do. It gives more purpose to everything that I want to talk about, the decisions I make. And, you know, when you see like the next generation, you just are like, whatever I can do to help shape them, you know, and like I said, they're already so much more confident than I was when I was, you know, 6 years old. It is crazy how the power of representation has really helped shape them in a way that gives them this self-worth, this confidence that I'm just learning now. You know, I'm in my 30s and I'm like, oh wait, I belong here? That's crazy, you know? So I think just continuing to give these young kids those tools so that they never lose them, because I think we all were, I remember being a little girl and thinking, I can do anything, like I can be, you know, the star of a show or the lead, and then it wasn't until I was a teenager that was like, no, you can't, you're not gonna be that, you're gonna be the sidekick or whatever. So I think my whole goal and purpose is to have the young generation never leave them, right? That feeling of anything is possible, which I think is certainly happening.
I'm way behind the generation, y'all. Like more ahead in a weird way. I think it's so incredible that, you know, in the palm of your hand you get everything and any information you can get, literally. I didn't grow up with that, so I'm still to this day, even though I hate social media gives me anxiety and all of it. I tell my sister, post something, go to my pictures and post something. If I have to, I usually don't. But the learning, there's so many stuff that you can learn from it, which, you know, a lot of times we didn't get. And the amount of information you have, like you individuals, are like way far more than the people who are in the older generation, right? So what you can do when you are all of are capable of doing is massive. And if you could just, my job, I guess, what I like to do is, because I'm not tech savvy, none of that stuff, all I know is the cameras and work with actors and what the picture should look like. My legacy, I would like to say, to give encouragement to individuals and say, you can go farther than what you think. And then I think for me, coming from nothing and just following my guts and just like whatever the universe sends to me in that moment and really find a way to capture that, that's also was important in the process, meditations, you know, all of it, including. And I guess telling the story is one thing, but then also for me, I hope that I get to inspire individual to really explore their life to the max. I think that's something that I consciously, whenever, you know, talk like this or on the interviews, and it's something I try to leave behind. So hopefully, so that 55 people who watches my interviews can get that, and then that they can potentially share my legacy or my thoughts or the power of our being human to their next generation, and I hope that trickle effect will continue to happen. So, yeah.
Sure. For me, again, martial arts has been a huge part of my life, and karate definitely shaped who I am today. If I can get one person to try karate more, then, you know, that will make me a very, very happy person. And, you know, it's more of I guess the culture shock in a sense that I experienced, where people have different image of what karate is. It's something that, again, I grew up, you know, practicing this martial. I did all sports, by the way, growing up. I was terrible at all of it. I was so in soccer, football. Again, like I love right now because we're watching the World Cup. But again, it's I wasn't really the best at everything. School, I love studying. Like I love learning new things. I love, reading and opening the books and whatnot, but I wasn't the best at taking tests. So I wasn't the smartest in the room really. But again, I was the hardest working one in the room. In terms of athletics, I was so-so, I was not the fastest, I wasn't the slowest one, but I was definitely not the fastest one. And even in karate, I was so-so. I wasn't always winning all these big tournaments. I was always definitely humbled because I trained in Japan as well. And karate in Japan is huge, collegiate sport, everything. So every time I win in the US, number 1 in the US, number 1 in Pan Americans, I lose first, second round in Japan. So every single time I feel like I was being humbled growing up in these 2 different locations. But again, for me, it's the mentality of if I can do it, then everybody can do it. And karate, martial arts has been an amazing tool to expand that mentality because, again, if my goal is to find somebody that is successful in, our future filmmakers or actors or actresses saying, I did karate as a child and that built a pillar for me to continue to do what I do. That will be my goal. Because I met other athletes who became an Olympian and medalist say, I used to do karate. I still remember katas. You want to train? For me, that gets me so excited. So it's not necessarily about building the future champions, but building future champions in life who practices karate. That's my motivation to be, to leave, I guess, a big legacy and bigger impact throughout my career.
I know Kokumai Project focuses on youth, but would you ever do something for adults? Would anyone go to a class if she? There's a market there.
I should have brought extra yeast today.
Legacy is such a huge word, and I think that it's often hard to self-reflect on what your impact could be. But the way that I try and break it down is thinking about the way that I move through the world with intention. And so specifically with the children's picture books, the idea of that was creating and sharing stories that would empower the next generation. When I grew up, I didn't have that type of representation and visibility, and so just realizing that for the next generation, whether they have the opportunity to read the book or simply see a cover that reflects someone that looks like someone they know, that can be so foundational in the way that you look at the world and see yourself. And so hopefully with the work that I've been doing, it leads to people choosing to follow their own dreams and path, because that's really the best thing that you can find in life is what really inspires you. And something that I heard the other day that I thought was incredible is that there are so many seeds that we all plant that lead to trees that you might not get to sit under, but that doesn't make it any less meaningful.
Well said.
Yeah. You are so articulate. I want to say
I know. Will you speak more to that?
And congrats on getting your books in Target. That was huge.
Oh, wow.
Next question is about culture and values. So what is one lesson or value from your cultural background that continues to guide your leadership? Whoever wants to speak.
What is one?
Yes. Yeah. Cultural value.
So start cultural values. Again, I think respect for me has been a huge part. And when I say respect, it's not constantly bowing down to everybody. No, having the courage to learn and understand that you don't know everything, right? And having the open-mindedness to respect every individual's story and background. Practicing martial arts definitely taught me those things. So I think with that mentality that, those things, having respect has been something that I carry through when I meet people.
I was gonna say respect is definitely a word for that exists in all of us, right? not to jump in, but like we obviously have to show respect, but you also have to respect yourself. That's number one. I think you always as Japanese or any Asians, we always put ourselves last. That's kind of how we build it, the family, all of it. But if you respect yourself, just like you're respecting your elder or somebody else, you're gonna put themselves respectfully and gracefully, right? So sometimes I ask everybody to just, it doesn't matter how old you are, just respect yourself and then do what other people want you to do, because that's most important. Because from you being the happiest, you can make everybody happy. If you're miserable, you cannot make everybody happy. So, not to jump on, sorry, I just thought I would share. I forgot what I was going to say.
I feel like in Japanese culture, something that's really appreciated is craftsmanship, but then also how good things take time. And so I think that that's really inspired me in various projects that I have, because that, and then also the art form of kintsugi, where it's about repair. Because I think that the older that I get, the more you realize that everyone is broken through life. It's inevitable that something is going to shake you up, whether it was when I had cancer, but there's still so much beauty in the way that we change over time. And so that's something that you should see in yourself, the beauty of that, but then also appreciate about others.
Can you do adult book?
He happens. Like everything about you is so poised.
I'm
like,
like, perfect. Are you alien? Where are you from?
Okay.
I think kind of building on what you're saying, I think for me, optimism and humility, and I do think they go hand in hand, because I think doing what y'all are doing in creative fields, it's freaking hard, It's in order to continue to go on and build whatever you're building. I mean, it's a daily struggle and it's a ton of work. I don't care what anyone says, right? And especially being an athlete. So I think for me, always having a level, like a little bit of optimism and humility, and that guides me in everything I do. If I'm here, it's because I really want to be here and I'm excited to be here, and I'm humbled to be here and learn, because I think continuing to be a student at whatever level you're at will continue to make things exciting, because I think the minute I get jaded in all this and I'm like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to, it's like that takes all the fun out of it, and I think it's definitely less meaningful.
I don't know if I'm going to be answering the exact question, but it just came to my mind, so I just want to share. I think being Asian American, Asian Japanese, because of our history, for example, and because what happened during the World War II, I mean, going back to your great-grandparents' age, or great-grandparents' age, like we kind of had to hide our being Japanese, like real quick, for many decades, right? You don't even, some of my friends who doesn't speak Japanese because they were told not to speak Japanese, to really hide their ethnicity because of what happened. And I think that kind of continued on, 2-3 generations, and now we're here. And now we finally have this, feels like now we have this power and opportunity to really come forward, because now finally people looking at our Japanese culture or Asian culture and say, there's something really beautiful about that we don't have in America, right? Obviously, America is such a young country, so no question about that. But, and I think, but because of it, I think it is really time to really push through and really introduce, which we're all doing here. But in the human level, I think being in a female or male of, color, etc., it's tend to, almost when there's a room of 100, 200 people, I'm looking at my crew. I'm the boss. All these people come from a different background. It doesn't matter what ages are. I find that a lot of people who look like us, right, tend to feels like we have to prove more, right? And that's how the society has been provided. Like if you're white, if you're whatever the thing, the male power, and then they don't have to speak much, or don't have to work so much, but then I think we just have to really put ourselves up there even more to prove that we're good, prove that we can do it. just know that it's there for you, and you don't have to prove it or you don't have to speak about it too much. Just show up and do your job. And less is more, but then energetically, just feel in your gut that this is easy, I can do it. And if you have a goal here, if your goal to be, let's say your goal to be, what's your goal in life? What's your goal in life? What is your goal? Give me an immediate goal. You don't know? Okay, who wants to give me an immediate goal? Like, this is what you want to do. Oh, shut! Okay, all right. So if they said, let's say, if your goal is to, I'm gonna say, if my goal is to, I want to win an Oscar, right? That's a good goal, right? But then if I make that goal, I'm just, as soon as I reach that goal, I have nothing else, right? But then if I said, after I win the Oscar, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fucking have orphanage around the world, help the kids who needs education, listen, whatever that is. So I set my goal higher than what actually feels like it's a goal. And that goal becomes the process. It's just that when you way up to get to what you actually want before you die. So whatever you guys are doing, I don't know what you all do, but just keep that. If you forget about my name, all good, but keep that in mind, that the way you want to go at the end of the life, what legacy you want to leave, you know, and then everything else, making $1 million, 7 figures or whatever, it's just going to be a process. It's going to be a just on the process, on the way to get to where you go. So anyway, I absolutely did not answer anything you asked.
That was perfect. And we are not going to forget your name. I can't wait to see when you're Oscar, because I feel like we'll all be watching and crying. Last question, stay with me, it's kind of a long one, but this ties back to the theme of the conference. So, Ichigo Ichie, the philosophy of Ichigo Ichie reminds us that every encounter is a unique opportunity that may never happen again. Looking back on your journey, was there a person or a conversation or a moment that changed the course of your life, and how has that experience influenced and impacted you created? Long question. Can you go first? Or?
The person who gave me the worst feeling, I remember when I was 16, I was in a theater group, and then the head of the theater told me that I would never succeed. I said, go fuck yourself, I'm gonna succeed. Watch, you don't know me, I'm gonna be more successful than you. And then I was 16, and then the next thing I know, I was like, I'm gonna come to America because Japan is too small for me. And I left. I took a test, I passed the test, I came to America, I went to Utah, out of all the places. I said, I don't want to go to this place where I see my people. And next thing you know, I was surrounded by, Mormon white people. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I'm still to this, I'm so glad that I went, because it was like the best experience. They were so nice, and I got to learn about everything, every culture you can imagine, especially the Mormon culture. Because of that guy, I was like, I'm gonna do something else, right? So, and even the people, I tend to pay attention to all the people I meet, walking down the street, anybody. If that person don't have a home or whatever, homeless, it doesn't matter. I just try to pay attention. If that's somebody there's a moment that I see that person, I definitely smile, say, hey, what's up, right? Like, that's it. I don't have to say, hey, how are you doing? How's your mom? How's your dad? But that energy changes it, because I'm always learning from somebody else. Like, I'm constantly learning. Even as a filmmaker, if I'm gonna cast somebody else, like, the person that I just saw on the street, and then it's in my mind, and it's like, oh yeah, what's his story? What's her story? So I just kind of keep going on that. So to go back to answer, like, Ichigo Ichie, I think every single person I met in my life really influenced me, great or bad. There's a line that we wrote on Beef, Stephen Yu's character, he says, the life is a trampoline, like, you hit the bottom rock hard, it's a trampoline, you have to go up higher. That's like literally exactly is that. So that if somebody meets you don't like, it's really, you have to be grateful instead of anger. Don't use that anger energy. Just use that energy to thank you, and then go back up so you can go higher as possible. So don't think one person, you meet 55 people. Don't think that, anybody's lesser than anything. Every single person, we're all here for purpose. Every single person is here for purpose. So, and that's including all of you. So just know that and be grateful. That'll be my message.
I have a really bad habit in my life of deferring, and I think, that's such a beautiful thing to be polite of others, and always, I think it's a very Japanese thing too, right? Of like, oh, you go first, and I'll hang back and let you. And I think I've been fighting a lot against those two sides of myself in finding the perfect harmony. And I remember there was one time where I was talking about this idea, and I was like, I wish someone would make this thing, I wish someone would do this, and I remember someone looked at me and was like, well, why don't you do it? Like, you're the person who should do it. It should be you. And I was like, me? Like, oh, someone else better will do this. And I'm like, no one else is gonna do this. Like, you have to do this. And I think that will forever change me, because it really made me have a mind shift change of, if I don't do it, okay, no one's gonna do it. So then it makes me feel like, well, I guess I better do it. Otherwise it's not gonna get done. So I think, whatever you're thinking about, you're thinking, oh, someone else would do that better than me. It's not true. That's just a narrative we tell ourselves. You are the person that needs to do that, because no one else is gonna tell that story the way you're gonna tell it, or build it the way that you see it in your head. Especially with AAGC, for 8 years now, I've been like, I need to find a proper CEO. Like, I'm not a business person. I didn't go to business school. I'm an actress. That's what I do. Until, same thing happened. Someone was like, well, you're the CEO. And I'm like, no, I'm not the CEO. And they're like, no, but you are. You already are. You're doing it, right? That is the work of a CEO, is building the company. It's your vision. So I think, whatever these hats are that you think you're afraid to try on, just know that you're already wearing the hat, so you might as well embrace it and just go for it.
And I would say there's nothing wrong with being please go for it, because that's the beauty about our culture.
Yes.
100%. And so don't forget that part. It's like, just the being respectful, back to what you're saying, and be kind and generous is always a key. Because if you forget that, you just become the person that you dealing with every day that you do.
But just don't forget about yourself, like don't put yourself so far behind others that you, like you said, are not respecting yourself.
I love the phrase ichigo ichie. I actually have it like tattooed too. Yeah, it's just been a phrase that I've grown up with, and I would like to, thank my grandma for that as well, because she always used to say like, 人との出会いは大切にねって、頑張ってるねって。So that's what she would always used to say, and all of us would not be here without people that we met, good or bad, right? And ever since my grandma consistently tells me, 人は大切にねって、I think every time, like you said, you come across anybody, I always try to have good intentions of either getting to know somebody or at least like acknowledge those people. Growing up, even in Japan, I grew up in a place called Okayama, country, very countryside. And of all Okayama, I'm from Uno, Tamanoshi. So we're like I'm at the bottom of Okayama Prefecture, and
Great jeans making. Jeans,
yes,
all
denim.
Denim.
Best denim out there. But even then, I remember, I think I was like 12 or 13. I'm running in this like very countryside of Japan, and there's this old oji-chan just like walking with his hands back, right, both hands back, to find out that he was a judo sensei. And again, it just seems like it's something that might come out of like a movie or a show, but every time like he'll see me run, he'll be like, oh, ganbatteru ne. Again, I don't know his name. I just know that he's a judo sensei. But just encounters, when you're a kid and when you're just living and surviving, those little encounters like does a lot of wonders. So when I look back at my career as an athlete, and I know there's so much more to learn beyond this, but I always think about all those people that have connected me to opportunities or connected me with people, and those are the reasons. The people are the reasons why I am here today. So ichigo ichie, again, it's such a powerful phrase, because you might not meet that person, or you might meet that person in 10 years, we don't know. but those people leave an impact in our lives, for the best and maybe the worst, but it always leads to something better, I think. So I always come in with the mindset of every people that I encounter is always something that will positively impact my life. And again, it's something that I treasure the most, and I thank my grandma for that because she's taught me the importance of human connection.
I think everyone's spoken so well about how interconnected we all are and how society truly is kind of a tapestry. A friendship that I really reflect on that I've had for over 17 years is with a figure skater who's been very successful in Japan. Her name's Mao-chan. I met her when I was 14 years old. She's about 3 or 4 years older than me, so when I first met her, I was at a younger level or a lower level in skating, and so I definitely revered her. I was so excited to meet her in person, and just the instant kindness that I was met with was very impactful. But then something that I really appreciate about her is the way that our relationship has been allowed to change and shift over time. And so it went from me idolizing her to us becoming peers and friends, and it's thanks to her and shows that she put on that I started spending more time in Japan. And then a couple of years ago, she asked my brother and myself to do choreography for her, to teach her. And so to meet someone who is flexible and doesn't immediately categorize your position in life, I think is so important because we're all always changing. And so the lesson that she taught me is to allow for that flexibility and growth in others. I think it's human nature to instantly categorize or try and place things in a certain way, but it's really the people in life who inspire you to continue to grow that's the most meaningful friendship. And it's not like I see her all the time. We maybe see each other once or twice a year. And so that's another lesson. It's not always about the quantity or amount of time, but the depth of connection and how present you are in those moments.
Oh my God! Thanks! I'm inspired.
That was beautiful.
How much time do we have?
Okay, did anyone have any questions? I'm union skilled.
Wow, what an incredible panel. Thank you so much for being here. I'm like, gonna cry. Ali, you talked a little bit about, how it's important to kind of maintain optimism, but all of you, I'm sure, have encountered very, very difficult challenges. I'm somebody who is a journalist, has a storytelling background, and sometimes, the world really weighs on me. And I'm like, what? No matter how many stories we tell about, this or that, like no one's listening. So I'm curious for each of you, how do you get past that sort of sense of disappointment and say, you know what, the best we can do is to try and keep going on? How do you kind of in your heads kind of shift from like, ugh, this is an awful thing, or, this is a challenge, and then how do you get past that?
I can talk about it. I mean, your story was 100% incredible. Example is that when we feel it's not happening, you feel so struggle. I think it's when things you're hustling and you're trying to figure out this is that, it's just so toxic, it's so tiring, and you're just like your mind just wants to just like shut off and like feels like everything's closing around you, right? But then I always say there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And when that happens, I think it's really important to just be really quiet. Just take a day, 2 days off. Go on not even a vacation. Just drive up in the nature. For me, nature always helps. Like I just go into canyon or even in the middle of nowhere, just do camping, like with just fire and a tent and a sleeping bag, and just be very quiet. And then really channel yourself with like, what is it? Why are you doing what you want to do? Right? What is this the drive that it got to you at this point? And then think on it. And there may be a moment you might get a new idea that something might say, oh, I could potentially do it this way, or I could tell a story in a different way, right? I know journalists, I'm developing a movie right now called The Scam Factory. It's about scammers around the world and how they are trapped in, actually they're human trafficked, and those are the people who's texting you every day, right?
So the journalist who is that one, she was a journalist, kind of same thing, going through a lot of, journalist is hard because you have a story, but this girl, very smart, she decided to hone on what she was interested in. She's like, I want to focus on the things that interest me and it speaks loud to me. So she focused on that and started interviewing those people. Now she has a podcast, right? She works for a company called Laundry. And because of her journalist background, because she was focused on this particular thing, she was able to tell a story and also make a podcast about it and do an interview. And there's obviously she's making money. Now we're making into a movie, right? So you just never know what could lead you to. And so when you all feel stuck, just don't be afraid to just take 3 days off. Just turn off your fucking phone. Like no more Instagram, no more anything. Just be present with yourself, with your family, the people you love, right? Friends. Like this can stay here. This is gonna come back to you 3 days later. You open up, it's exactly the same as 3 days ago. Like nothing's changed, but you're gonna change. So stay on that and just really listen to what you feel. And when I shit you not, when you meditate, I swear to you, I'm so sorry. Japanese is really bad. Sorry, yeah. But anyway, when you really focus on yourself, and when you really just try to, there's. I don't know if you guys all believe in energy, whatever, spirits, whatever. I'm very all about that. So when that happens, there's always got your guardian angel deities or whatever that you don't feel it, but they're there always for you. And that might be just you staring at the rock, and the rock look like somebody else's face, and that face is gonna start laughing, and then you might have an idea or something. I don't know, I'm just making that shit up. But it's basically like you just never know. So quiet your mind and then see what happens with it. And if something happens, just call me and say, hey, I have a great story, and we'll talk about making it happy.
And maybe to add on to everything you just said so beautifully, my very good friend Sherry Cola, I don't know if you guys are familiar, she's an amazing comedian, actress, one of the best people I know. But she would, we talk all the time about, I didn't get this or whatever, this didn't happen, and she always tells me, and I think about it all the time, she always says, nothing is for nothing. And it is true. I think about that after things go wrong, or I don't get what I wanted, or something didn't go right. I was like, nothing is for nothing, and it is true. And I think all of our stories are kind of indicative of that, of the person you meet and how that changes over time, or how failures, perceived failures, can turn into some of the greatest, most beautiful things. So I try to think about that after I do anything. Like nothing is for nothing. Like something will come from this, or I will learn some new idea, or I'll meet somebody.
Like if I can say, my career, like I started as singing. I did a musical, like as a kid. I started singing. I wanted to be an opera singer as a kid, and then like I wanted to be a superhero. So I was like, I should be the closest one as I can be a police officer. But that was kind of like Japanese police at the time was very corrupted. So I was like, okay, that's out of the picture. And then I just continued to do it, and I became I studied theater in undergrad. I dance, music, like I said, painting. And then I came to America, and LA, I did all the auditioning, commercial, music videos, blah, 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 blah. Nothing made, I might have made up money in that moment, and I was okay in that moment, but nothing stayed, right? So I just had to keep figuring out what's next. I started selling paintings at a coffee shop. That then, okay, but then painting takes forever to paint. And then I picked up a picture, I started taking pictures of my friends. Who are actors and dancers and musicians, and that led me to become a hip-hop photographer. And I started taking pictures of weddings and baby births and funerals, like bar mitzvah, anything you name it, I shot it. And that led me to become a filmmaker. And in that whole process, the whole time in my 20s, I was trying to figure out, what is this? But I just feel like there's something there that I'm taking pictures, a click is so much faster than painting 2 weeks on one picture, right? Olympian never dies. So I'm just gonna do this, and I have to do this Chinese film, and then that's gonna develop it for me. And there's contact streets, and it's here we go, voila. And then eventually that whole experience is now as a filmmaker, I'm just with it. I can talk to the top of the top DPs and producers and studios and say, I know what the fuck I'm doing, so you should hire me for this, $100 million movie, right? And that experience, without that whole experience of struggle, like I never have that conversation. You know what I'm saying? So everything happened for a reason, get to the point. So don't, even though you feel like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm going with this, there's always a purpose out there.
Also, my favorite directors are ones that have been actors or performers, because you have such a level of empathy of how hard that is, and being able to connect with actors in that way. So yeah, that's cool.
And one more question.
It's okay. You get
Maybe we can do two, like combine. Yeah.
They're quick. Sorry, we don't talk too much. Make it very tight.
Hi, thank you so much. This has been a really incredible panel. I wanted to ask something. I think, you were asking what our dream careers are. For me, I don't work in arts or sports, but I have always had a passion for it. I did acting when I was really young, and I've done Taekwondo on and off for years. But I think for, as Japanese Americans, there's always a need to be responsible, and have a pressure of how is this going to fulfill me, and how am I going to make a living from this? So for me, I've always tried to balance how am I going to keep practicing my passions and my crafts. So I'd love to hear any advice from you on, what advice do you have for staying motivated on your, just practicing what you love to do, even if it may not lead to, success in terms of making a living out of it.
I'll go really fast, but sometimes, creativity is all consuming, right? And it can flow and change all the time, and it can lead me astray sometimes, but I always think about, this is like a little bit inner child work, but they say like when you're around like 6 to 8 years old, that's kind of when you're doing exactly what it is that moves and shapes and you love. So I always think about what was I doing when I was 6 to 8 years old, and maybe you can all think about that, right? And that is supposed to kind of guide you back to what your like heart loves doing. So for me, that was when I was little. I would put out this mat, and I would have little Polly Pocket dolls and Barbies, and I'd make them all. I'd act out scenes and scenarios and do voices, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love doing voices and characters, right? That's what I will always love and do, which is inherently storytelling, right? But it kind of really brings you back to your center of like, what at my core do I love doing? Because that will always continue to motivate you, I think, in the right direction.
You guys want to talk? Yeah, you can talk. I could talk about it, but I should relax. Yeah.
I think it's so important to follow a feeling, right? So if you can identify what you're passionate about, that in itself is so rare and something worth protecting. I think that so often people are very focused on specific outcomes. And so that's a great thing about setting goals, because you know that certain things will happen at a presumed time, right? But I think that it's also really important to remain present and appreciate the process, because if you only think about the goal or the next thing, that's really not a way to live. That's not experiencing the highs and lows of existence. And so the best advice would be to follow what you're passionate about.
Okay, Maia's my therapist now.
Totally.
My life coach.
Yeah, like trusting the process is a good point. I feel like as athletes, we're constantly, or at least for me, like we experience disappointment a lot, because it's not like we win all the time. To the public, the wins are the ones that people notice us for, and accomplishments, but majority of the time we're losing, and that's just more behind the scenes. So trusting the process and understanding what your passion is. Again, going back to the theme of Ichigo here, like I feel like once you meet the people that share the same passion or share the same values or feelings or emotions, I think that's when something special or big happens. So those are like, it's such a great question. I honestly want to hear answers from like everybody here, because again, as athletes, it's not like we make tons of money either. And karate is such a small, tiny sport that it's hard to make a living out of it. And I understand the feeling of what can we do to stay passionate in what we do, but also live, right? But I learned with my process of transitioning into, being a full-time athlete to retiring and moving on to something, I learned that cherishing the people and having trusting the process. I think that's one thing that I'm telling myself as I go through my next chapter in life.
I have a story. My mom, my single mom, I love her so much. She was such a liar too. She told me my dad was dead. And then she said, he's like, oh, I heard that my dad wasn't dead. And she's like, look at the television, that's your dad. And there's like a very handsome actor on television. And I believe that was my dad. Anyway, that's my mom. Yeah, that's my mom. Yeah,
Oh my
gosh. The one thing that she told me, like, try everything you want to try. She was like, and if you don't like it, quit. I was like, okay. But she was like, but I paid how much? Like, I paid like $100 for you to get in start this class. So at least take that $100, think about it in your head. And then she can get that worth $100, okay? I'm like, okay. But I think, don't be afraid to try things that's foreign to you. If you feel like especially stuck, you have a representation and all that stuff, sure. Get that shit off of your mind, just like you're a human being, it doesn't matter, I mean, I think the pressure we're putting in is the pressure we are putting in ourselves, not anybody else. Like, you have to think about that, And then some people work great with pressure. I don't work great with pressure. I hate pressure. So what I do is like, I just go in and do whatever I feel like I want to do in that moment. Or like, oh, I want to learn this, and so I'm going to learn. I'm definitely going to learn karate class. So. So just don't stress. Like, stress is you create. Stress is not everybody else putting on. If you look into it, it's you putting on. So just try everything. And if you don't like it, quit. Seriously. Like, why not? But you learn a lot. You meet some people that you never expect to meet, even though you don't take that lesson for, more than a month. But then you may make a best friends from that meeting, right? And you just never know. That's what we're talking about, Ichigo Shake. Going back to what we're talking about. Ichigo, okay? So, yeah, do whatever you want to do. I know there's one guy won't raise hands, and I know if you want to, let's just, I feel bad for leaving him.
Well, thank you.
Oh wait,
guys.
there's a guy.
And then you can give that too.
The guy in the back. Yeah.
Sit down.
I get. Oh, okay, sorry.
You can do you next.
I think everybody is pretty much a storyteller, whether they know it or not. But you guys do it really intentionally. So I just wanted to ask, maybe, like, what's something that's really important for storytelling that people don't tend to think about?
I have to think about that.
Sorry.
That people don't think about. I think let's see, if within that entertainment, right? Like, if somebody says, I want you to make this, it's about a girl who goes through, she's becoming a superhero. And she doesn't represent anything like what I'm used to or then. And then I try to say, okay, what is the salt and pepper that I can bring that I brought from Japan, right? Like, what is my spice that I can put it on to make it look more unique? Because there's 1,000 stories that out there that it just repeated. I mean, story never at this point is going to be original. There's always somebody made it already. But then what is that relationship you bring into the story, right? And this is not just a movie, but I think it relates to whatever the creative idea you have, is that what is the essence that you, from where you're from, who you grew up with, and what kind of conversation you had, and what kind of toys you played, all of it. What is that input you can put into this boring story? And that makes unique, you know what I'm saying? And then everything that you had experienced, you've been to, Japan or Brazil or wherever in the world, and if you haven't, even just around the corner, that you find something beauty in that. And that's a beauty that you only find, right? Bring that beauty into this story, because those moments build unique stories and ideas. That make sense? Okay.
I'm like formulating a nugget in my head. It might not make sense at this point, but I think in terms of representation, I think for a long time I would say, oh, there's already like a Asian female story. Oh, there's already, like, kind of what you're saying, like oh, there's already like somebody telling a Japanese American story. And I think sometimes we think about that when there's a lack of representation. We think there can only be one form of representation. And in going deeper than that, I say, okay, even though there may be a Japanese American story from a woman's perspective, okay, but still mine will be different, right? That doesn't mean I shouldn't tell my story as well just because there is one already. So I think kind of changing my mindset of like scarcity mindset shouldn't change how I go forward with my own storytelling, if that makes sense.
And this is a good one. If somebody asks you, like, we already heard that, and you go, but you haven't met me. Here's my story, bitches. Okay, there's a one boy over there. He's be raising his hand.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Are you all good? It's a little bit
My name is
funnier.
Sanjay.
Let's just get him.
Hello. Thank you for bearing with me. I know we're short on time, but I had a question about fear. So I think fear is something that we can all relate to in some way. And I was wondering, was there ever a moment in your guys' either personal life where you struggled with fear or even fear for your life and overcame it somehow?
Constantly. Fear is with us all the time, right? At least for me. There's always the fear, that fear of failure, right? Fear of not having a successful production, fear of not getting the right cast, fear of this story is gonna get made, like, or fear of, is my family gonna be okay if I don't succeed, right? Fear of not having enough money. This fear is gonna come around with constantly. I think what's important is to find a way to, it's hard to say when we feel like a fear constantly, to say, try to take that fear away. That's impossible, right? So for me, I think on the other way. Again, I think we're energy. I think in Japanese words, there's a beautiful word, like kotodama. Words have energy, words have spirits. So if you keep saying, oh, I'm afraid, oh, I'm scared, chances are you're gonna start feeling like that way more than you expect. But then if you say, well, I'm feeling this way, but take that in, observe it, and then what would it make me feel better if I didn't have this fear, or what actions or whatever objects or whatever would make me feel better or good or overcome this fear, right? If that makes sense. Like, for example, if I'm worried about the casting, or if I'm worried about making this movie, I said, when I make this movie, then this is what I'm gonna do, right? The energy just shifts, right? Like, instead of, oh, what I'm gonna do about it, like what's gonna happen, worry about it. But when this happens, because that thought, power of thoughts, is gonna create your future, really nothing else. And I experienced that in my life, like from ever since I was a kid, all the way, 20s, 30s, 40s, like all the way. I'm constantly trying to figure out and see what I want to see. And as hard as it is, but it's a practice too. So if you feel that fear, find a way, again, be quiet, go nature, hug a tree, and it all works. You see me hugging a tree somewhere. She's hearing about something. She's very worried. So, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Fear is everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah, I think this common question we might get asked is, do we get nervous all the time when we compete? And again, it's like, for me, the nerves are always there. And I tell the kids too, like, I'm always nervous. Even if you can compete in the biggest stage, you know, even a small local tournament, I would get nervous. And that comes from fear, right? Fear from, oh, I trained so much, I put in all these hours, I sacrificed everything, and I compete and I could lose first round. So my, time to shine might be done in the first 10 minutes of competition. And sometimes I had that experience where I competed on day one on a Friday and I had to stay until Sunday and I don't have nothing else to do. But fear, like nervousness, all these emotions will constantly be there. And I think that's one thing that I thank sports, and for me specifically, karate, because I had all these emotions in my head and I always had a difficult time articulating it into words as a kid. And I was able to put all of that into karate, and all those feelings goes out. There is a term called machine, where there's like this constant state of flow, where you're not thinking, you're just in the present moment. And again, like karate really allowed me to do that. But again, the emotions will always be there. I think we learn to deal with it and recognize it and to have a better relationship with those feelings along the way.
Like, I have a question for you guys, because like I can even imagine, like, before you go in, like before the music starts, you go into the skate rink, like you know what I'm saying, like all that shit. Like, I used to do Shaolin martial arts. I quit like after a couple of years because I was no good. And I used to do gymnastics, but then I couldn't deal with that fear that going in a competition is like, I hate competing. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna dance and that's it. But I'd love to hear, like, is there anything specifically you guys do before you go in to go on stage? Yeah.
As much as I got nervous, I actually love the pressure. I don't know about you, but I love the pressure because for some reason I found this trick where I turn those emotions off. And when I put, I'm gonna do a demo later, so you'll see me put a gi on and do a kata, but I think what putting on the gi for me and putting on the belt, just kiga hikishimaru. Like, for me, it just allows me to forget everything that I had in my mind and allows me to compete. Now, what is the trick to that? It might be experience, it might be self-talk, it might be allowing myself to take that in and just forget about it to compete. But I love the pressure and I enjoyed it. I think that's why I loved competing and performing. I don't know if you had any experience or tricks.
Yeah, I was never able to forget about fear or nerves, and I found that it was really detrimental when I would try and compartmentalize and act like something didn't exist, because that emotion, it's visceral. It bubbles up in areas that you don't expect it, and specifically, like in all sports, I feel like you need to be very present. If you're thinking too far ahead or thinking about a mistake that maybe just happened, you're pretty much screwed. You have to be very mindful. And so for me, I think of fear or nerves as just energy, and energy is something that can change and be translated. And so I would always ground in gratitude. I had been working so hard and I was following my passion, and that led to this moment and this opportunity where if the younger version of myself could see what I was doing, wouldn't I be so excited and grateful? And so that mindfulness always allowed me to slow time down and focus on my breathing and being at my most connected.
Well, I already feel very connected. Just very, like, gratitude. That's it, beautiful. That's it. That's very beautiful. That's so true.
Wait, to add to what you just said, I think the same, like, auditioning and all of that, I've learned to kind of embrace nerves as a positive thing almost, because try doing something you don't love at all. I guarantee you will not get nervous. I remember I did a project a few years ago and I was like, I'm not nervous at all. I'm just like here, and I realized, you know what, I probably should have said no to this because it's not in my heart what I wanted to do. So now I realize nerves means I'm excited, like this is something I'm really excited about, which can be a great thing, and it's how you channel that through into your work and what comes next. But yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. I know you have to go change. I'm so excited for your yay!
I want to see this.
Yes. Yeah, one last round of applause.
Before I let you go, just one last one of all of you together.
Standing or?
Yes, that thing is fine.
Okay, so we'll just take a quick break, so a bio break, but please come back in about 10-15 minutes here, and then Sakura will do a demonstration, okay?
Last one.
Thank you.